Well, I'm back up here with my buddy Reed, and I was thinking I just kind of called this Reed Ramblings, you know.
Well,
'Cause
that's
wasn't that what you had in the paper years ago?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, yeah. But I wanted to share a little bit. A lot of friends have told me already they've enjoyed what we've done, and I know that you'll be moving, so we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
But I would like to know what it was like growing up as a teenager in Calico Rock when you were a teenager. What did y'all do for fun, entertainment? What was it like then?
As a teenager, well, I wasn't here for a long time as a teenager. I was off to college when I was 16.
Yes, I remember
So,
that. Yeah.
But anyway, of course, I was born here,
Right.
and Calico Rock in those days, it was gravel roads anywhere you go into town, and we moved a total of 7 times
Oh my.
in within the city limits.
Right. Right.
When I was growing up, and we lived at the very end of the electric line. I mean, the Wright, Mr. and Ms. Wright had the power company here.
So
This is before Entergy or before Arkansas Power and Light was.
right, because it was powered by Calico Rock Power Supply then,
Exactly.
was it? They
Right,
had
yeah.
generators
Two
downtown.
generators.
Yeah.
And over in the eastern part of
Yep.
of the town, and
Yep.
and up Highway 56, we lived. And most of my growing up from age 5 to age 14,
So
I
the
lived
people,
in the Rock House at the bottom of the Red Lane. I
Okay,
mentioned it
yeah.
a lot in some
Yes.
of my
yeah.
writings there.
Now, so if you was at the end of the line, what about everybody beyond that? So they didn't have power.
Kerosene lamps, and if they could, they'd have a kerosene refrigerator. Maybe I knew
Oh, I had forgot about those.
the
Yeah.
Hudson family, who Dean and Charles and
right.
were just at the top of the hill, and we went to church together, and
Right.
So we were close growing
Right.
up in that period of time.
Right.
Now the first part there, like I was born in a house right across the street from what's now the library,
Right.
and then we moved to a house on this side of town,
Mm-hmm.
and were there for a little while, and we moved to a back up to a house right where the drugstore building is now. You know, houses have
Yes.
names.
Yes.
And this was the William Wayland house.
The old William Wayland
Big
place.
yellow 2-story house
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we lived for when I was about, I guess, 2 years old maybe. And then we moved back to this side from ages 3 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where I learned to read and write. At my neighbor across the street were the
Right.
Hagars,
Right.
and Ms. Hagar, and they had a daughter, Johnny Faye,
Mhm.
and we played together, and Mrs. Hagar, we'd sit at her feet, and she taught us our ABCs and
Well,
and numbers and all
Right,
that. And so I
right.
learned, but when I got to the first grade, I could read, and they moved me to the 3rd grade.
yeah, I remember you telling me all about
Yeah.
that.
Did I tell you that last
yeah.
time?
I
Okay.
want to ask you this question now. So a lot of friends didn't have electricity,
No.
so they didn't have running water either, right?
Well, they may have had wells. Now we
Yeah.
did have a well. We
Right.
didn't have there. We did water. The water line stopped down about where right now the
Uh-huh.
creek there, where the Cumberland Presbyterian Church.
Yes,
along
yes.
in that
Calico
area there
Creek.
was about as far as
Yeah.
I
Okay.
recall.
Now, here's
where
the-
the water line went.
Now, here's the question a lot of young folks is going to ask me about now. Since we didn't have running water like with a pump and pressurized water in a lot of the homes in those
Yeah.
days, when it came to bathing, what was the process involved in that?
Well, I was usually the last. You know. No, but anyway, we had a tub. It was a
Wash tub.
well,
Yeah.
we had the regular size wash tub, but we had one that was actually longer.
Yes, I remember.
It's got an oval,
Kind of
more
an oval shaped wash tub.
and we put about that much, maybe 2-3 inches of water, in the bottom,
And that's because you had to heat that by hand,
well,
didn't you?
absolutely,
Yeah.
and save water and all that too.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. And you
And,
had to, if you wanted from the well, you had
So
to haul
it's
it.
not
By the way,
uncommon,
I'll
for-
make a mention here. They're probably hearing boats in the background. We're sitting out on your deck
Yeah.
here up here. Is this Nain? Is that what they call
Nain,
it?
yeah,
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
you can the word Nain means beautiful place.
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
it's
Well, let me-
it's scriptural from Luke 7:11 if you
Yeah.
want to look it up.
I'll remember that because of the
Grocery store.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Well,
over.
let me get back to our water
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
my name means wanderer, so sometimes I get out and wander a
Okay.
little bit. We were talking about the water now. So bathing in those days. So was that an everyday thing?
Saturday night.
Yeah.
True,
I've heard people
truthfully,
say that.
you know,
that was about
now-
once a week.
Now I could hardly wait, maybe in the spring
Right.
to take off my long handled underwear
Yeah.
and I usually wore overalls.
Right.
You're
I got-
wearing a pair of overalls.
I got my overalls
now.
on today. Yeah.
Well, that's what I had, but to take my shoes off, go barefoot. Only time I wore shoes was yes, I wore shoes to church
Right.
on Sundays, and but other than that, I was barefoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, until way up in the.
But
in
now
the fall.
that was fairly normal for the kids
Oh,
in
yeah.
those days. All of them did.
Oh,
pretty much.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I don't see anybody.
Yeah. So okay. So now
yeah.
growing up as a kid, games and things were different too. And stuff that you did, entertainment. And I was asking about what it was like to be a teenager. Now I know you moved when you were 16, but like growing up during that area, early teenage years, what did the kids do for fun during those times?
Well, earlier, I'm maybe earlier than the teenage.
Uh-huh.
When at that age, we played games.
Yeah.
And
What kind of games?
ring around the rosy,
Right.
drop the handkerchief, Annie over.
Oh, I remember that.
and,
Andy over. Yeah.
And a lot of games that when you get a group together,
Uh-huh.
and we played Parcheesi,
Yeah.
which is a board game at home,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was one Uncle Wiggly was another board game that we had back there inside, and of course outside we played. When I was getting older up into the teenage years, baseball,
Right.
and that we went swimming, and we swam in the river. And the favorite swimming hole was right where the Calico Creek comes into White River.
Yeah, but
right
now
there was a big,
the-
right there where we swam.
river was different back then,
Oh,
though, wasn't it?
definitely, it was warm
Yeah.
in the
because
summer.
There was no
and
dam up there.
low,
Yeah.
and you could almost walk across it in certain places.
But now-
depending.
But now other times, without the dam being there,
Mm-hmm.
the flooding made a difference, didn't it?
It was quite often.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes I've even seen pictures where water was in Main Street in Calico Rock.
I have gone down Main Street in a rowboat.
No kidding. No
To
kidding.
there's one little high spot
Uh-huh.
on the right before it starts down to the railroad tracks.
Right.
The railroad track I've seen underwater
Yes.
there, and there was a depot at that time also,
Oh, yeah. I remember
and
that
we had
years ago.
passenger trains.
Mhm. Yes.
then. And but anyway, there was one little high place right there, and the lower side of Main Street then was
Right.
underwater,
Right.
or at least had water up in some Hammond's store down in the lower part down there
Yes.
flooded just about every year. I don't know how they ever stayed.
Was that the store where later became Cheney's department
No,
store?
no, I'm talking about way down in
down in Pepper Sauce Alley.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because the creek came up there, and there
Yes.
it was It was
Yeah.
definitely in the floodplain.
And
did
so you
quite a
probably
lot.
remember when they had the fire down through there years ago where it destroyed a lot of that.
Oh, no, that's before my time.
Was it? I couldn't remember because I know the Pepper Sauce Alley at one time they had a
Yeah,
fire and destroyed some of
the
that.
the fire, the big fire that destroyed Lower Main Street
Yes.
was back in the 20s.
Oh, back in the 20s.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now we had lots of fires,
Yes.
and that's one of the things. Later on in my life, for a little while, I drove the fire truck
No kidding.
because they parked it right in front of the drugstore, and when they had a siren that would go off.
Yeah.
You call, and the Gussie at the telephone office would flip the switch to there, and then she would call who Mr. Harris
Right.
is one of the times that was. Well, he'd run out in the street and say,
We need a fire.
the
That was the fire
is."
alarm, huh?
And
Yeah.
one time he did that, and they had parked the car on the street, or the fire truck on the street right out in front, and so I looked out in a little while and it was still there, and Ray Vaughn, who worked for the Cheneys right across the street,
Right.
well, he came out, and so we got in the truck and drove it up to the fire. It was up at a house somewhere up there close to where the Presbyterian Church is
Now,
on the other side.
The drugstore used to be right down here on the corner in town, correct?
Well,
Originally, years ago?
It's in a building that on the upper side there. That's
Where the museum's at
next,
now?
next to the where the at one time next to what was the post office when the drugstore was there.
Wow.
I can't describe that building, but
Yeah.
it's the oldest building, freestanding building. There's
Wow.
a picture of it, and there's nothing around it. It's all,
So you've
all
seen
alone there.
a few changes to Calico Rock over
Well,
the years, haven't you, brother?
quite a few. Yeah, it used to be a Saturday town.
Yeah.
You know, the Calico Rock started as a shipping point.
Yes.
First of all, with steamboats,
Right.
and they came at the area where I told you we
Yes.
swam down there if the water was high enough. And then the railroad came. It was still a shipping point.
Yeah. They had a
And-
gin or something down here, didn't they? That the gin was just below it down there that they shipped out cotton and stuff with. when
Well,
people-
this was the cotton time.
yeah,
You know, they
kind of
the
played it
hill
out.
land hill land here now
Yeah.
won't grow very
No.
much because
No.
all the topsoil, they farmed it to death back in the early part of the century there.
Yeah.
And so cotton was just they were still had the gin,
Yeah.
but it was on the other side of the Calico Creek.
Yes,
over there.
over there
Yeah.
where the old feed store was
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you've seen
I've seen cotton.
you've seen gravel days and paved street days, and you've seen a bridge being built,
Yes.
all in Calico.
Yes.
So Calico's went through a lot of changes over the
A
years.
lot of
hasn't it?
changes. Yes.
Yeah. And more people than we used to have years and years ago. You know, here in Calico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a renaissance in there
Yeah.
when they built the railroad came through
Right.
and all that, but I
Right.
wasn't here. I wasn't around then, so I
Yeah.
can't really testify
Yeah.
to that, but
Yeah.
I've read about it.
Yeah. Well, Reed, I appreciate this segment. I'm going to close this segment. We're going to go to another segment
Oh,
in just a
okay.
few minutes.
Good.
Okay.